One question that did come up that I kind of want to finish on, because we have covered the kind of issues we see and potential solutions and changes we can make. And this is really something that I've always been interested in from the investigator side of audit. When you're interviewing someone in the business based on an allegation against them, I understand that during that, you as a professional are kind of trained and experienced in not only hearing what they're saying, but reading how they're saying it and their body language. That can help lead you to maybe probing further, asking more questions. How can investigators continue to really do their job very clearly, almost as intrusive as they can be in a normal world where they are in front of someone? How can they continue to productively interview somebody based on an allegation? Is a Zoom call or a Skype call enough?
I think that really, I mean, of course, all the investigators, they talk about interviewing skills and reading the body language. But in my experience, I mean, this part helps us in a minority of cases. It's more of a question of coming prepared and having good evidence. So I don't think that this part of our inability really to read the body language of an interviewee will harm this part of investigation a lot. Of course, you know, we don't have many tools in our tool set because we're not police investigators. We're company employees. So of course those skills help. But still, if you come prepared, then you can perform an interview remotely. But I would advise, of course, to check with legal and with data privacy teams. Let's call it procedural elements of those interviews, because of course it's being done in a different way. You don't know where the data is stored. You don't know actually what kind of obligations you should put on the interviewees, because you can't really force them you know, to be by themselves. You can't really check if they're alone in the room. You don't know if they record you as well as you record them, or are you allowed to record them because they are in different jurisdictions. So a lot of legal and data privacy questions will arise. So again, of course, to check with legal and privacy, but what you can postpone for after the crisis, better postpone it, and only do the emergency cases, emergency interviews.
Sure. What about yourself, Nikolay? Because you're in a slightly different situation where you're providing services to clients within the profession. Do you see there being opportunity to actually be able to do more for clients remotely, and this be kind of something that develops, or do you think that interviewing face to face is still something that can add value, but like Alex said, in the minority of cases, it's going to have an impact?
Yes, you know, I think that actually depends on the case which you have. For example, if you have strong evidence and it is just clear enough what is going on, and you just need to make interview, just make a tick, just everything just to prove, and there are no any confrontation, and you don't need to give the, I would say, admitted that person should admit the fail or not fail. But in more stronger and complicated cases, when you have not enough evidence and you cannot obtain them, this interview, as Alex said, I would postpone till the face-to-face interview, because it's really a tricky point. When you feel person, you see, I would say, deep into eyes, to the soul, and feel how they react on different situation. And I have a lot of experience when you just observe the person and see how it reacts on some minor question, and you understand, whoa, we should move to this way, and you completely change your interview program, your question, because was a tricky point which you're not discovered during your investigation, and you need to quickly adapt to this and move to this direction. I think it depends on the cases. If it's more, I would say, not simple, but pretty clear, you can do and not lose any effective via the call. But if it's hard with some tricky point where you are not sure 100% what is going on, and you to understand and get this information from the people in legal way, for sure, this is better to postpone it. But to be sure, we don't have, as of now, during this crisis, any interview and interrogation stage in COSA, because this is why, to be honest, I don't have experience to interrogate someone via the Skype or Zoom. Only interview, but it's the first stage of investigation, just to understand how the process works and etc.
Sure, Marcio, I'm expecting, based on what they've said, because you and I have had some of these conversations in the past privately, by me being overly inquisitive about how this stuff works. Do you think that there is potentially still a risk here, or do you think it's something that can be done remotely? Will that mean that some cases do get through the cracks because interviews can't happen, or do you agree that it's mostly based on evidence, and let's bring the evidence to the front and use that to our advantage?
I think I will agree with Nikolay on this, because I think it depends on each case that you have, but I would definitely postpone any interviews, because we're on most of the countries around the globe right now are in a lockdown, and lockdowns are really bad to be face to face with anyone. There's a number of implications, legal implications, harassment claims that can arise from you trying to be in the same room with an employee that you're investigating. And obviously, this situation is temporary, because we cannot go on indefinitely on a lockdown around the globe. Most countries are already using this time basically to prepare the health system to adapt to the new situation, so they're enhancing their capabilities. But I believe that after 60 days, there will be a huge pressure for at least some of the activities return. We'll have to adapt and live with the risk. And I think this is when we will be better prepared to plan the interviews. And because the investigation is a process that involves several activities, as Alex said, we will have opportunities to increase our hard evidence, to go through documentation, and better prepare ourselves for the moment of the interviews, because it's really unusual to have a case in which the person can continue practicing fraud after the investigation has started. So 60 days, I think it's where most of us are already halfway through the lockdown. So I believe that at least 1 month, we will be able to perform very good interviews. So I think it's the time right now is better to wait. And also we should take into consideration that not all public services will be available to continue and progress. If we, for example, need to terminate an employee, obviously it depends, and it will vary from country to country. But I think countries like Spain, for example, that are suffering a lot, and Italy, some of the public services won't be available for the next step. So I think it would be better to hold interviews and continue planning around the situation, because eventually we'll be able to have face-to-face interviews.
Michael, if I may add, I also think that interviewing people that were locked at homes for 2-3 weeks, you have so much noise around, so their body language, I think it's you can't even understand what this person is reacting to. Is it just to the general lack of comfort, or a kid screaming, or is it a give up or that he is guilty of something? So it's really becoming impossible to analyze.
Very good point, Alex. That's perfect.
I don't know what kind of training
sure.
different companies are providing for phone interviews, but for me it looks a bit shaky.
A bit like questionnaire, just.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very good point, Alex. People are reacting differently to the situation.
It's not a normal situation.
Yeah. Everybody's nervous about it. So you're reading the body language. Maybe the person is just afraid of everything that's going on, and you might misread or have a bad interpretation.
Exactly.
Everything.
And as an investigators, we can't rely on such shaky evidence of behavior. So I think we can forget about this part.
Yeah, that makes a very good point. I mean, I have a young daughter, and I can guarantee you that if I were a person that was fully innocent and you asked to speak to me, let's take yesterday, for example, I would look guilty because I would look uncomfortable. I would look like I did not want to speak to you because I wouldn't want to speak to you. I would just want to go into a safe room quietly on my own for a few days and relax. But so no, it's a very good point. Very good point.